I was at the Essex Fun Fest for wrestling. I was at a barbecue. Basically, I had a really enjoyable, really fun weekend. I loved it. I was grateful for it. But now I'm grateful to be back here, uh, streaming with all of you guys. As you know, my usual schedule is 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. I start my streams 1 p.m. Monday, and then I go through till 1 a.m. on Friday, or sorry, 1 p.m. on Friday as well. So I do 1 p.m. Monday, and then from that until Friday at 1 p.m., I do 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. streams, always Eastern time. So I hope everybody is doing well. Please, as always, take a moment to hit like, hit subscribe. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, please let me know. First, Mayo and Oreos, congratulations. It's funny how YouTube managed successfully to game that, right? To basically turn this idea of being first into a big deal because you have the purple notice there, all the rest of it. It's kind of interesting. It just goes to show gamification is real. But Mayo and Oreos, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. I did want to talk about, um, well, a few different things, but primarily Detroit Masonic Temple and the Detroit Library and Archive, which it's unfortunate. I guess some of what I've been hearing. I love the Detroit Masonic Temple. I think it's one of the most incredible places in the world, both from a Masonic perspective, but also just like it's not even from a Masonic perspective exclusively, right? It's just from a day to day, like architecture, history, arts, entertainment, economics. It fits into so many different areas of importance. That's the really beautiful thing about it that I love. And so, yeah, I want to talk about that and a recent news release that was sent out. But we'll do that after the first 60 minutes. First 60 minutes, as you know, we just hang out, chat about whatever, talk about whatever. No specific talking points. I just like to see what people want to say. So please, as always, take a moment to hit the like and the subscribe button. Well, thank you. I mean, I'll take it, Yuritsa. Please, if you think I have beautiful eyes, you should hit the subscribe button. Well, I mean, you need a concept of time to enjoy life, right? Like, I enjoy going to the movies. If I have no concept of time, I won't, be able to go to the movies because I'll keep showing up too late or too early. But I think if the question you're asking is, to what extent do we always worry about like I need to do this by this time? If I'm not a millionaire by the time I'm 30, I'm unsuccessful or something. I don't think that stuff is helpful. I think ultimately one of the biggest dangers we have is setting artificial limits on ourselves because we don't know how long we've got in the first place, right? You know, so it's better to kind of enjoy day by day, moment by moment. Well, then thank you, Yuritsa. I appreciate it. I have a cat, but yes, I am single. Although this is also, keep in mind, not a dating site, so let's just keep that in mind as well. This is YouTube where I talk about Freemasonry. And the first 60 minutes, I just hang out and talk about whatever. Obviously Freemasonry first, but if you have general questions, the more the better. My cat is currently sleeping, so maybe I'll get you a picture of the cat later on. But I don't like to brag or nothing, but I do happen to have the greatest cat in the world. So it makes sense that you want to see the cat, as should everybody. So let's give it some time though. Let's wait to see who joins. Ritz, you're getting kind of weird. I'm not going to go find the cat for you. You're on your own on that one. We're just going to hang out, wait to see who joins. As always, please hit that like and that subscribe button. And don't forget, so many people were asking me where I was this weekend. I posted stuff on social media and also posted stuff on my personal YouTube channel. Um, but obviously, my Scar and Compass streams, they're weekday streams, not weekend streams. Um, Well, we don't organize our entire society around money precisely, right? We organize our entire society around value, and money is the unit that we decided to create to ascribe value. The theory is the more money you have, the more value you either provide to or contribute to society. Now, I don't think that's true, for the record. I think one of the biggest problems we have in I think one of the biggest problems we have in modern society is that I don't think money and who has it and who doesn't is a necessarily good or useful way to ascribe value to an individual, right? The minimum wage, person working as a hotel maid provides a lot of value to society, or at least a lot of value to the people staying in those hotels. The prison guard who's not making that much provides a lot of value to society if they're doing their job well. But I think the problem is ultimately, like, money in and of itself is not valuable. It's just paper, it's just coin, it's just metal. We ascribe value to it, and then the assumption is whoever has the most of it provides the most value to society. I think we've seen enough time pass to recognize that that's very often not the case. Very often, the people who have the most money are not providing the most value to society. So, how's it going, Kurz? I do play video games, but not on stream. I honestly don't even know how to play video games on stream, but it would be kind of fun to try it. I think that'd be really enjoyable. Um, Kaiser, how's it going? Kurz, how's it going? I'm not a commander, but nonetheless, I'll give you one of those salutes. I hope that your day is treating you well. I mean, that's a good question that we could even apply to Freemasonry, right? How do we, within Freemasonry, ascribe value? What does it mean to us in terms of what is valuable to society? Because obviously, despite what people think, there are many Freemasons who are not doing well financially. There are many Freemasons who are. But when Freemasonry talks about what we value, and we say we value the internal and not external qualifications of man, right, what does that mean? I am a Mason, Kaiser. I started this channel to promote the ways Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities in which it's located. Kurz, it is way too hot. Even if I did fart, you wouldn't catch it on the screen or through the audio. It was a good soccer game yesterday, Dad. It was very impressive. I mean, actually, I just saw the highlights. I don't even know who won. Who did win the soccer game? I was sad Canada lost, but I'm not a huge soccer fan, but still. Unfortunately, England. Hello, contradictional gamer. So you were cheering for Brazil, right? It was Brazil versus England, if I recall correctly. Okay, never mind. So it was Brazil, Norway. Who was England? Was it Mexico? Who was England facing, contradictional gamer? Mexico versus England. All right. England beat Mexico. Well, I mean, I don't think the temporality of life makes it more or less meaningful. I don't think life is inherently meaningful. I think the moments that we create within life is meaningful. Or, if we were to discover life on another planet, that would be very meaningful. But it wouldn't be meaningful because it's alive. It'd be meaningful because life on another planet would indicate that we're not alone in the universe and there could be other intelligent species, right? It's not life inherently that is meaningful, whether it exists for a million years or, 1 year or 1 second. It's the moments that exist within that life, whether it be going to a Masonic Lodge meeting or, helping somebody or who knows what, right? That's what makes life meaningful. I suppose the temporary nature of life makes it more meaningful in the sense that, like you don't have an infinite amount of opportunities to make a moment, right? Like the because I know life is so temporary, right? What it tells me and reminds me of is if I have a chance to try to make someone's life better, I should. Because who knows if I'll get that chance again. If I had an infinite life, maybe I would be less inclined to help people today because my theory would be I have an infinite number of tomorrows where I can try to help people. It's kind of like if you have a gym in your apartment and you pass it every day, you're actually less likely to go to it because your thinking will be, I can always go there tomorrow. So I think in some ways, maybe a temporary life or a limited life encourages us to take advantage of the moments we do have to make things better. But who knows? Um, but I think ultimately what makes life meaningful and gives life meaning is the moments that we have within it, not um, not the time, not the length of time. I mean, if there are people who live for 30 years and do more in those 30 years to make people's lives better than people who get a couple hundred. It's way too hot, Kurz. I don't disagree with you. I'm not enjoying the heat at all in Canada, but 36 for you guys is incredibly hot. I hope you get some relief very soon because yeah, it is so hot. Controversial gamer is true. You do miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But the problem is, right? I think if you had an infinite life, maybe you would think there's always time to take the shot tomorrow. There's always time to take the shot tomorrow. And the truth of the matter is, it's like Rocky 3. There is no tomorrow, right? So you need to keep that in mind as well. Pitch ball size. The weather's being interesting. Uh, People who talk about they don't believe in climate change. It's like, all right, but we got a lot of, shall we say, very interesting climate issues happening at the moment. So I hope everybody's doing well. Please hit that like button and that subscribe button. I'm going to try to do something here. We're going to see if this works. Perfect. I'm in Florida. Oof. Oh, when you said England, I thought you meant you're in England. I mean, I know Florida gets really warm as well. Whether it's England or Florida or anywhere else, I am not a fan of it. Put it that way. I don't. Yeah, and there's some truth to it, right? It's so easy to think I can always do it tomorrow. Um, Now, Marcus Aurelius, one of my favorite quotes, said, "Do not alarm yourself by imagining your whole life at once." I think that's true as well. You need to find a good balance, right? Everything in moderation. Kurz, you're not wrong. There's that old expression, "No good deed goes unpunished." But I think that you don't want to become cynical. You just want to protect yourself, right? So don't help everybody because that can obviously lead to issues and overextending yourself. But don't become so cynical that you never help anybody. You need to find a good balance. Hello, Mr. Dane Mapping. Hello, Josh. I mean, both of them suck, Dad. I don't like dry heat and I don't like damp heat. I don't like heat at all, period. I mean, part of it too, Mayo, is you just got to be smart and use your head. I mean, if you help somebody once, that's great. The third, fourth, fifth, sixth time, and if they're not making changes in their life, you need to just ask yourself, am I being used? And if you feel like you're being used, well, it's like humid curs, humid heat. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, the help that people want is not always the help that they need, right? And yeah, when it comes to drug addiction, you need to be so careful about, are you helping? Are you enabling? Um, Same thing with, like, who knows what it could be, right? Same thing with a lot of different things in life. It's very easy to mistake helping for enabling. That's why a lot of these groups, like what's it called? I think, let me make sure I got this correct. Al-Anon, yeah. So um, Al-Anon, which is a support group for people who've been impacted by other people with alcohol problems or drug abuse issues. It is absolutely the case that, that's a good place to go and talk because very often, at least in my experience, if someone is struggling with substance use or addictions, they are very good at guilting people into helping them or guilting people into trying to get them to feel better. Uh, if you really loved me, you'd give me money. If you really loved me, you'd, help me. If you really loved me, you wouldn't call the police when I steal your shit or whatever it is, right? They're very good at using those manipulative practices to get what they want. And so a big part of that is it's your job and your responsibility, A, to recognize when that's happening and to not fall for it, but also within that context to find a support system for yourself that you can talk about how you're feeling to make you feel better. And Al Anon's a great group. Burger or pizza? Probably burgers. But I mean, pizza's really, really good. It depends also on where the burger versus pizza is coming from. But if it's, let's say, the best burger in the world versus the best pizza in the world, I'm probably going with the best burger in the world. People do that, contradiction gamer. I've seen that. I've seen basically they take a ground beef, cook it, put it on a pizza. They got the cheese there already, obviously. They may add extra cheese. They may add mushrooms. Yeah, it's cheese or burger pizza is becoming more common. That is true as well, Dad. And Mr. Dane, Ottawa, 1,000,000%. I've grown more a fan of Toronto lately, but for me personally, it's Ottawa because that's the place where I grew up. Well, I mean, I grew up in Winnipeg, but the first place I moved when I left home was Ottawa, Ontario. And, I think anytime you leave home, the first place you move to is going to be a really special place for you. Plus, Ottawa, it's just so beautiful. Genuinely, it's so beautiful and it's so underappreciated. Um, I think in a lot of instances, especially by the people who live there. Very often, I find when you live somewhere, you don't appreciate it. I felt that way about Winnipeg. Like when I lived in Winnipeg, I never really appreciated the city. It's just been upon returning there to visit my family that I realized it's actually a really beautiful place. Ottawa kind of, I think, suffers from the same thing sometimes. It's so beautiful. The people are so cool. The buildings are so incredible. The neighborhoods are so fun that because you're so proximate to it, you don't appreciate it as much. People always say familiarity breeds contempt. I don't think that is true. I think familiarity breeds indifference. It's not that you are contemptuous of the places around you, you just become indifferent to them. You stop caring about them. Um, What's the city that police have silly pants? I have no idea. That guy. That's a weird question. I mean, sure, I'm in love with a lot of things, but not with the person, if that's what you're asking. Alternate account, I love animals. I would say I like animals better than people, as a general rule. I've never understood people who, like, if you don't like animals, I don't get it. I can understand if you're allergic to them or you had a bad experience as a child, like you were attacked by an animal. But otherwise, animals are, like I said, I will take animals over people 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. Well, Mr. Dane, you need to keep in mind you could not ask that question in a Masonic lodge because Masonic lodges are places we're not allowed to discuss politics. Outside of lodges, though, I can tell you Biden 100%. I think Biden is maybe the greatest president of my lifetime. Greatest president of all time, I really like LBJ, but greatest president of my lifetime would be Joe Biden. Yes, a hot dog is a sandwich. Really, Kurz. I'll have to look into that. And I'm always happy to see animals that they thought were extinct coming back from the grave. I think that's awesome. I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's called the Moab, right? The mother of all bombs. So he is not a, well, he may be a Freemason, Santos. You just stepped in a whole thing with that one. Um, a whole very complicated question. So on the last day of his presidential term, he was doing and I've been involved in politics in the past. He was doing a whole line of greetings. So basically, it's where you as a president or the prime ministers or anybody will do this. You stand in one spot, and a whole bunch of different groups and delegations. They could be charities or community groups or individuals will come up and meet with you and shake your hand and you know give their little spiel of whatever it is. Very often it'll be charitable groups that were supported by the president or research that was funded by the president, who knows? Or just a group that the president wants to thank personally for maybe some charitable efforts or who knows what. Um, on that day, the Prince Hall Masons of South Carolina met with the president and gave him a plaque and made him a Mason on site. Now, first of all, it's highly questionable whether Joe Biden knew he was being made a Mason on site or knew what that meant. He's meeting with, who knows, hundreds of people in, an hour span. They're all just giving him a plaque or a card or something and then going on their way. But second, the legality of being made a Mason on site is highly questioned amongst Masonic scholars. And on top of all of that, Prince Hall of South Carolina is not recognized by many jurisdictions. I mean, for me personally, as a general rule, I'm comfortable calling Joe Biden a Freemason. He's would not be recognized by myself, right? In the sense of if I'm having a Masonic Lodge meeting, he would not be able to sit in on it because he would not be recognized. But for the purposes of day to day conversation, and if I were to meet him in public, I would just call him a brother. Um, what year was the best? Best for what? Kurz, I highly doubt he did. Um, Dwayne, I liked Joe Biden. I think he did a great job. I mean, in one of those lines, probably not. I mean, he got so many plaques and cards and gifts. Like, it's one of those things where it happens every single. If you're in one of those lineups, and I've been in a few, not for the president, but for the prime minister, it's just you walk up, you greet them, you say, "I'm from such and such." And then you move on, and then you go to the next person, and the next person, and the next person. It's one of the reasons why it's so risky, right? My presumption is they were probably brought in to do with something related to civil rights because Prince Hall Masonry was a major, factor in the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. In fact, Martin Luther King Jr. had his headquarters in a Prince Hall Masonic Lodge building. Um, I mean, the best year was 1983 because that's the year I was born. Um, well, they found blow, if you will, in the White House. It was never confirmed whose it was. I don't think it was Hunter's. HD, would it make a difference if I was or was not Jewish? Freemasonry welcomes people of all different faiths, backgrounds, ethnicities, beliefs. We have Jewish Masons and Muslim Masons and Hindu Masons and Sikh and everything else. Um, so what difference would it make? What is the best game I have played? I love the Dead Space games. So I'd say Dead Space, I don't know, one, two. I think Dead Space 2 is probably the best. Hello, AV. Why Biden? Like, why did they want to make him a Mason on site? Or why is he my favorite president of my lifetime? And AV, how are you? It's good to see you. I heard him speak. He communicated. I mean, he spoke pretty well, I thought. He wasn't, I mean, he lost a major step. He got older, and that happens. And if you're comparing the Biden of, Obama's vice presidency to Biden of 2020 would have been 3 and 4. Yeah, there was a huge difference, but I still thought he was a decent enough communicator. He did a pretty decent final State of the Union address. Do I think there's gonna be another war after the World Cup? I hope not. I mean, I'll keep my fingers crossed that it won't be. I think, I've said this before. I know this probably sounds like not possible or whatever it is, or maybe me being idealistic, but I truly think the more Freemasonry that we had in the world, the less wars and conflicts we would have in the world as well. Do I believe in bad luck? Of course. Sure. I mean, I believe in good luck. I believe in bad luck. I don't, I think very often luck is less of a factor in our lives than people like to think on both directions. Like people will look at someone who's really rich and say they were just lucky. Sometimes it's luck, but it's luck combined with hard work and dedication and effort. And they'll look at someone in a crummy situation and they'll think they must have had bad luck. And sometimes it'll be bad luck combined with just a crummy situation. Like, I think you need to be really careful though. You never want to downplay luck as a factor in someone's life because it can help you. You can become very judgmental of people, right? Like if you downplay the effect of luck on a person's life, it's very easy to look at a homeless person or someone who's really struggling financially or otherwise and go, it's all their own choices, it's all their decisions, that's all it is, and luck has nothing to do with it. And that causes you to be judgmental and also causes you to ignore how you can solve problems in someone's life. By the same token, you never want to overplay luck as a factor either, because then you're removing agency from individuals. So it's a balance. Um, well, no, luck is not supernatural. Luck is just circumstance, right? Like I'm lucky to have the parents that I had. I didn't choose who my parents were going to be. I don't think any supernatural being chose the parents I would have. I just happened to be lucky and I got the parents I got, you know? Can you manifest luck? Define manifest, right? I don't know what manifest means precisely. Like you can, there's that quote from the Bible, which I'm probably going to butcher it, so please forgive me. But the biblical quote was something to the effect of, do your work diligently and quietly, and unknown friends will come to your aid, is I believe what the quote is. that's an example maybe of manifesting luck. If you just keep your head down and you do your work and you do your best, sooner or later you will find people to help you and you will find people to assist you. At least I think, and that's a type of luck. And it doesn't just have to be friends, right? It can be friends or it can be circumstances can change to provide you with help and luck. There is no such thing as Illuminati, right? There is no such thing as the Illuminati. They existed in 1776. They stopped existing, by 100 years ago. They weren't really anything. So, sorry, no Illuminati. But if you are new to this stream, please take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, please let me know. I would be much, much obliged. Are RF7 lifts? By the way, are you like a exercise channel? Like the phrase RE7 lifts makes me think that you are on YouTube talking about lifting, like weights. We are not a branch of the Illuminati, but Eric, you just explained and described the problem with conspiracy theories and why I hate them so much. Because every conspiracy denial just proves the original premise, which always really pisses me off. Like, um, it's kind of like if I accuse somebody of being a criminal and they say, no, I'm not. My response can just be, well, that's what a criminal would say, right? Like, it's not a fair thing to expect from someone or to require from someone. If you think we are a part of the Illuminati, then what is your evidence for that? And then I can refute specific claims. But again, you can run back into, well, of course you would say that. And then you're kind of back at the same point. It annoys me. So there's nothing I like about, well, oh gosh, that's an interesting question. I mean, so we'll start with the latter. Sure, there are things he's done that I like. To me, the most obvious one was in his first term, Operation Warp Speed, the creation of the vaccines, and the rollout of the vaccines quickly. I hated what his supporters did with that, and falling into conspiracy and telling people not to get vaccinated, which really pisses me off. Get vaccinated. But so Operation Warp Speed. In his second term, the fact that we are taking steps to finally return to the moon, and to see NASA sending out human beings further than at any other time in history is something I love. So that entire program, I think, is incredible. Also, two pieces of legislation he passed. One was right to try, which is a piece of legislation, I think it was in his first term, but basically it gave people, if you are terminally ill, it gives you permission to try medications and drugs and treatments before they get final approval, which I appreciate. I mean, it's your body. It's not exclusively your anything, right? Part of being alive means you belong to a community that includes your physical self. But at the end of the day, it is still your body. And if you are terminally ill and have nothing to lose, and you can, there's some type of medication or some type of treatment that could potentially help you, even if it's not reached that FDA approval stage. Like, I think they should have the right to try it. And then in the second term, I do know he passed a bill requiring more transparency in medical billing. So basically, if you go to the hospital and you get a bill at the end of it, keep in mind this is the States, not Canada, but you get a bill at the end of it, and that bill, back in the day, from what I understand, it would just say, you owe us $10,000, pay up. The bill that was passed by Trump, or, that Trump encouraged, however it worked precisely, basically says, you don't just get the final amount, you also need to get an explanation of how they reached that number. So you see how much it cost and how much came to you altogether. That way you see things like, a Band-Aid costing $40 or something. So I guess those are the things I like about what he did. I think ultimately it doesn't counter effect the absolutely terrible effect he's had on politics. But that's a separate issue. In terms of what I like about him, um, I mean, there's not a lot. Here's what I'll say I like about him. And I think the people who, for lack of a better term, are fighting on the side of good, um, could take from him and use. He genuinely seems to have zero shame. Like, he has, you know, I'm not going to go through all of his personal life and all the things that happened in his personal life and all the things he did that most people would be insanely embarrassed by, all the scandals, all the insults, all the et cetera, et cetera. And he seems to have like zero shame about any of it. I think that very often people who are good people who want to do good for the world, they make mistakes, they screw up, they mess up, and instead of having no shame about it and just owning it and moving on, they get so caught up in what will people think of me, what will people consider about me, how embarrassing is this, whatever it is, that they stop trying. Um, or they're afraid to put themselves out there. I've done a million things that I'm incredibly proud of. I've also done a million things that I'm incredibly embarrassed by, and look back and would rather have not done. I've also done a lot of things that I'm very proud of, but I know other people would think are not good. The point is, don't have any shame. Don't worry about what other people think. If you want to, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody screws up. Everybody wishes they could do things better. You need to just focus on putting one foot in front of the other, trying your best, and doing what you can to make the world a better place. Because the people trying to make the world a worse place, they have no shame. So why should the people trying to make the world a better place? Um, and there you go. That's, I guess, my best answer. Whoa, we're not. We're not going to be calling people dumb on the stream. You can call me dumb, but you're not going to call other people dumb on the stream. Um, well, I mean, if you think it exists, then you're going to be interested in it, even though it doesn't. Sorry, Ari. If you think I'm in the know about the Illuminati, then you're gonna have to trust me when I say it doesn't exist. Um, I'm fine with it, Mr. Pallet. I mean, there are a million different types of things that we can do to raise money for charity. That's one of them. That'd be a really cool thing. Can we get some t-shirts with your face on them? Well, Kurz, you cannot get that because I don't have any of those, but I do have a Patreon account. I'm really trying to grow it at Kurz, and I would be so grateful if you would consider being a Patreon. I'm going to leave my stream here. Patreon.com/square and compass. I hope that you will consider supporting me there. Patreon.com/square and compass. Um, and if you join at different levels, you'll get different gifts and coins. Somebody joined a little while ago, but for some reason, I cannot find like their contact info or something. I don't know what's going on, but for whatever reason, I can't get their stuff. If you join my Patreon, please consider, get in touch with me. If you did not receive your items that you are deserved, please let me know so I can get them to you. Um, like, but you didn't sign up for me, right, Mayo? All I can say is so far, for me, Patreon has always treated me well as a creator. But if you had problems with it in the past, that's okay too. You don't have to sign up again. Just being here helps me out greatly. Hello, Tom Collins. What do I enjoy most about life? Um, I enjoy most about life the fact that I get to try and make the world a better place, and I have the ability to impact the world. That makes me feel a lot better about it. I'm grateful. I'm not just a passenger. I'm actually have some active abilities within. Um, so this is a quote I heard from Ricky Gervais, and I really liked it. And I think it's a good way to look at things. He said, I didn't exist. Now he's an atheist. And if you're not an atheist, then you may not agree with this, which is fine. But I do think this is can be a very healthy and helpful way to look at the world. He said, I didn't exist for the majority of time, and then I do exist, or I did exist, and I get to feel the sun on my face, and I get to eat cheese and drink wine and swim in the ocean and all of these different things I get to do that I get to experience, and then I'll go back to not existing. So he described life as a vacation from non-existence, and I think that's a really cool way to look at it, and probably a very healthy way to look at it. And I kind of agree the same thing. I get to be alive. I get to experience all the things I love. I get to watch my favorite movie. I get to pet my cat. I get to love the people around me. And then eventually I'll go back to whatever comes next. It's not a bad deal. You would get illuminated after the first degree, Astro Farmer, technically. Austin, I've never liked that quote. I think it's silly. I think it's a dumb quote. Um, so not a fan of that one. AE, there's a lot of politics here. Now, in Freemasonry, in a lodge, there's no politics, right? You need to keep that in mind. So, in my experience, within a Masonic lodge, obviously there's no discussion of religion or politics. Outside of it, it gets brought up, and that's fine. Now, the goal of this channel is to talk about Freemasonry, but if somebody asks my opinion on a political matter, I'll give them my opinion, making sure to remind people I speak exclusively for me and no one else. But I do also think we do need to at times think about politics and Freemasonry. I mean, to give an example, um, inflation affects Freemasonry. As inflation goes up, Freemasonry is affected. And, you cannot pretend like it doesn't matter or it's not relevant or it's not important. Those things do matter. So, in that sense, if a politician is putting forth a platform or putting forth some type of idea that I think is going to have a really negative and really damaging effect on civic institutions and civic society, I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to talk about it. Um, yeah, I think that was Ricky Gervais, Mayo, because he said something like that. I think he's correct. Um, there's a good point. I was fine before I was here. For the billions of years I didn't exist, I was perfectly fine. And I'll be perfectly fine after. Thank you for the star. Um, Mr. Dane, I agree with you on that. And that's a big thing as well. Like, part of why Freemasonry became so popular in the 20s and the 50s, especially among black men who did not have access to insurance in the States because they were priced out of it, was it was like a social group that you could create your own insurance for. Many black fraternal organizations were types of insurance. Um, what kind of food at lodge? It depends on who your lodge master, who your lodge junior warden is, right? If you have a lodge junior warden, he is responsible for setting up the different types of food in the lodge. Sometimes they'll do finger foods, sometimes they'll do fancier foods. It really just depends. No, well, Knights Templar, it's a separate organization from the Freemasons, right? The Knights Templar that you're thinking of, um, was from the 1150s, something like that, to 1308, um, give or take. The Freemasons started about 400 years later. I mean, it primarily just comes from this idea that it's more related to professionalism, right? Freemasonry evolved from stonemasons. Stonemasons were professional workers, and it made no sense for them to get into disputes on a job site about religion or politics. It made more sense to just not discuss these things, which does make a lot of sense to me. Um, Mr. Dane, I'm sorry you broke your arm, but yeah, I've I mean I'm looking at maybe donating a kidney. I've had a lot of dealings with the system as of late, and I can assure you I've been very grateful for the Canadian healthcare system. It's helped me out a lot. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not, obviously, but that's not to say it has not at different times in my life been incredibly helpful to me and something for which I'm truly grateful. We were talking about Freemasonry, just a girly. Well, right now we're talking about anything. The first 60 minutes, I don't have any specific talking points. We just hang out and chat. So, any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, let me know. I don't need a kidney. I have an extra kidney, which I might be donating to somebody. I'm working on the process right now. We still don't know what's going to happen. I need a whole new set of testing, but I'm working on it at the moment. I will tell you this, they are very careful with me and my kidney to make sure I'm doing okay, for which I'm grateful, by the way. I have two. I have two kidneys. So obviously, when I say I have a spare, I'm being a little bit facetious. Um, I don't have, I have the regular two, but there's somebody I know who just has one and could use another one. So, or just has he has a kidney disease and he needs a kidney. So maybe I'll be donating it to him. We shall see. Um, Sell it. I don't want to sell it. I don't think that would be right. I don't. I would not be comfortable with a lodge or sorry, with a lodge with a medical system that you paid for organs. I think it's just unfortunately way too dangerous. You're much too likely to have people taking advantage of the system. Um, you know, it could be ripe for abuse. I can recognize why we don't allow sale of organs. I don't even think you should be able to get money for your blood. I know some places they'll pay you for blood donation. I don't think that's right either. Yes, the junior warden gets suggestions from his brothers. I've said this before, but I think we should definitely, as junior wardens, if you are a junior warden, talk to your brothers. What do they want? What do they what are they looking for? And see if you can accommodate. It's tough because there's so many different requirements. There's so many different vegetarian, vegan, religious um, limitations as well. And a junior ward has to take all of those things into account, but it's okay. May I'd be just too rife for abuse, right? Because um, it could encourage people, like um, I'm just getting some water. I'll be right back. So, going through this, thank you, Just a Girly, for the flower. That's incredibly kind of you. So, I've been going through this process now for about 6 months, actually seven, and it's still ongoing. And keep in mind, as I'm going through this process, there's somebody else who is on dialysis every 2 weeks who needs a kidney. And yet I'm still, 7 months in, and we're still not even close to being done the process yet. Um, Throughout all this time, I've had multiple tests. I need to get more testing done because I have some unique medical conditions. That's resulting in additional testing. But the whole point is, during all this time, I've been completely honest, completely upfront with the doctors. I'm not lying. I'm not making anything up. And the reason, right, is, well, I don't think I would do it anyways, but I'm doing this exclusively to try to help somebody else. If I was doing this because I'm getting paid 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, will that encourage me to lie about medical issues? Will that encourage me to ignore the risk factors that could be at play? Will that encourage me? And let's say I make a deal where I tell the doctors doing the organ donation, I'm getting 20 grand, I'll split 10 grand and 10 grand. I'll take 10, you take 10. Would that encourage the doctor who's doing the organ removal to ignore risks to me and warning signs to me because he wants that 10 grand? Um, I can say my organ donation team has been 100% concerned with my health, my safety, my well being, as have I. Because of that, there's no incentive for me to lie or, ignore risk factors or push risk factors. Once you bring money into it, all of a sudden, you're encouraging people to start to lie or ignore risk factors, or suddenly people who normally would be considered too high risk to donate, maybe they start to become okay. And at what point are you then just replacing one problem with another? Because from a societal standpoint, it's no benefit if I give up my kidney to somebody and then I end up needing dialysis down the line or needing a new kidney. All we've done then is, from a medical systems perspective, replaced one problem with another problem. Um, so motivation, I mean, I think motivation will affect the way you interact with something. Motivation will affect the way you deal with something. If your motivation um, is the financial aspect of it, yeah, you'll get more donors, but you'll get more unqualified or risky donors. And the other issue with that too is it's a long process, it's a challenging process, even just right now, right? Imagine if, because there's financial incentives, suddenly you have an extra 10% of the population trying to donate kidneys and organs to get paid. Suddenly, the process takes even longer because you have to screen out all the people who are too high risk but are applying for the money. Um, I think the fact that there's no money, A, it ensures you're donating for the right reasons in a moral sense, but B, it ensures that the risk factors are properly weighed, properly considered, and not ignored. Um, well, it was my own choice, but again, that doesn't help society as a whole, right? Like, so right now, there's somebody out there who every week, everything's every week, needs to go to dialysis, needs to get, dialysis done. That's taking up space, resources from the medical system. One of the reasons I'm considering donating this kidney, if I'm able to, or one of the reasons I will donate this kidney if I'm able to, is because I want to see our healthcare system benefit and that person not need dialysis anymore, right? If I donate the kidney and now I'm on dialysis, I'm not going to feel bad for me. It was my choice, but I will be pissed off because now all I've done is moved the same problem I was trying to solve from one person to another. Every hour somebody's on dialysis is 1 hour of medical resources and medical time and expertise and medications that could be going somewhere else, going to that person. Um, I mean, Kurz, if you want to keep it, obviously everybody can choose what to do with their organs, but I'm comfortable. I know the risks. Now, again, I'm still not sure it's there yet because they still want to do more testing, but we're working on it. Part of the reason is I have no legs. I also have something called Kallman's syndrome. And for those reasons, they're doing extra testing. But yeah, I would say, though, everybody, in my opinion, everybody should look at donating organs after death. You're not going to need them when you die, but other people will. So, I don't believe in organ farming either. I don't think that happens. Um, Worst country. There is no such thing as a worst country. Every country has its good and its bad. It's the people, right? But I've been lucky to travel around the world, literally. And, it's always come down to the people. And I've been grateful for every place I've visited. It has been raining, Karkadam. It's been raining a lot. We had a storm yesterday during a wrestling show, but it's still really fun. Who do I hope wins the World Cup? I guess I'm gonna go with England in honor of my dad. With all the tests, so Kurz, it is hard to lie. Like, believe me, they are testing the heck out of you. And so it'd be very hard to lie, but I'd be concerned that if you're getting paid for an organ, you could just offer money to the doctor to ignore the test results. Or not even lie, just, you know, acceptable range for, let's say you need some type of level of 7 to donate a kidney. And let's say they come back with a test result and it's 7.1, right? Maybe if you're not getting paid for it, and if the doctor it doesn't have any risk of getting a kickback, you're going to go 7.1. Yeah, it's an acceptable range, but it's just too close. I'm not comfortable with it, and you don't donate. If you're getting paid, and if the doctor might get a kickback, suddenly 7.1 is like, it's okay. I'll still take the risk. And all you're doing now is, like, I don't want people making that choice based on whether they're getting paid or not. If they love the person, if they want to do it anyways, that's what they should do it for. Once you bring money in, you're making decisions for a very different reason. Or maybe the test comes back and it's 6.9, but if you modify this and you bend this, you can get it up to 7. Do you really want people deciding on the efficacy of a medical procedure based on getting paid for it? Well, okay. Mustard. Huh? You would think not mayo, but we've seen enough of it that, you know, we've seen enough stories of doctors doing all sorts of things that risk their license. Oh, Mustang. By the way, ketchup does not go on hot dogs. I'm just going to say that. I don't care what anybody says. You do not put ketchup on hot dogs, period. It's wrong. If you do so, you're still welcome to be here, and you're still welcome to be a subscriber and a member, but you're wrong. You should not do that. So, Mr. Dane, here's what I'll say. You need to separate the political system from the country itself. I know that sounds strange. Look, I will say, I have no doubt that North Korea is an incredibly beautiful place. I'd be willing to bet money that it has some of the most beautiful, nature and reserves in the world and views. Um, I also am sure the typical person and the people of North Korea are incredibly friendly, but I think the political system is one of the worst in the world. It's fascism, and that's a terrible thing. It's the same thing with a lot of countries around the world. But I think if you want to say so, the worst political system, North Korea, and I not want to live there under that political system. Having said that, every country has the potential to be better. Every country has the potential to grow. And I'm sure North Korea, if they would, a lot of things would change, could be an absolutely incredibly beautiful and wonderful country. Hello, Kavush. What is the light for which I'm looking? I got used to people talking crap about me as I'm sitting here eating potato chips. I've I've argued before, I still believe this, by the way, that we as Freemasons have a responsibility to take care of ourselves, to make sure we're physically and mentally well within like what we can do, right? Some aspects of health are just outside of our control. You can't control your genetics, you can't control anything like that, and that's okay. But you can make choices. And I'll admit, I'm not always the best. My biggest red flag is food. I'd never really eat healthy, but I'm trying to be better. But having said all of that, I do think we have a responsibility to try to maintain our health and our well being. Well, whatever you say. I mean, communism is a political idea. Keep in mind that politics is not discussed in lodge, but I mean, whether you're more left or more right, you don't ever want to completely disparage one particular ideology. Um, well, I mean, it depends on what your passion is, right? Like I've known some people, mayo and Oreos, who thank you, Kurz, ketchup does not go on hot dogs, who like they could care less about food except as a fuel source. So they basically it's chicken, it's rice, and it's a vegetable every day for dinner. It's two hard-boiled eggs and bacon for breakfast. I mean, they don't want it to taste terrible, but they don't care if it tastes good. There's very little seasoning. It's just fuel to get in. They're not preparing anything special. The food is whatever you can get into you as quickly as possible, while at the same time being, as easy to produce. There are other people I've known who love food, and they love everything about the food. They love the cooking of the food, the eating, the tastes. They're obsessed with like taste combinations. It just depends on what you love. If you find something you love, though, then living for it, I think, is okay. It just depends. Like, look at the bear, right? Ultimately, though, you should first and foremost, live for other people, as well as yourself. So whatever you say, ketchup on a steak is horrible. Hello, chronic morality. Whatever you say, ketchup on hot dogs is not a necessity. You should be in jail for that one. I'm going to be so quick to say mooch. You guys got a lot of stuff from Canada, including a lot of energy. So I'd be hesitant about that. It's been a pretty beneficial trading relationship before you use the term mooch. Hello, Locker. I don't want to take over anything. Let's just calm down with that. It'd be way too much work. Way too much work. Well, the problem, Austin, is, again, we're getting political, but Donald Trump negotiated the last trade deal in his first term. So it's like, if he negotiated it, why is he now saying he wants a new one? Maximilian, I can't pronounce your name. Hello, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. If you're just joining this stream, please take a moment. Hit like, hit subscribe. I would be truly appreciative. Well, P2, keep in mind, P2 is clandestine to my knowledge and not recognized. But yeah, it's possible for individual lodges to be corrupted. It's not possible for Freemasonry to be corrupted because Freemasonry is decentralized. So there is no single governing body that could corrupt it. In the way that, like, let's say with the church, you have like a Vatican or something. Individual Masonic lodges, it's not that way. Right? P2 and, let's say, Freemasonry Ontario, they're under completely different governing bodies, completely different systems, completely different organizational structures. Terry, who's just joining us. Hello, Juan Kenobi. Thank you for being here. Well, itchy fingers. What's the lies? All lies. To what be we lying about? Yes, double tap the screen and let's hit that subscribe button. Let's hit that like button while we're at it. Help me out, help me grow. Join my Patreon. Believe me, all that stuff helps out big time, and would be truly, truly grateful. Um, we're gonna give it a little bit more time. Wait to see who joins. By the way, I discovered today is. Let me just pull it up in just 1 second. That is all lies, Itchy. So that is true. I will say that. Um, there's no live summonings on this stream. I did note, and I did want to mention this as well, so I think it's important to mention. Let me see if I can pull it up now. Today is National Injury Prevention Day. The CN Tower is lit green for it. That's where I discovered it from. So, Freemasonry, you know, our Masonic buildings are very often public buildings. If they're not public buildings, they are at least very often and obviously used as meeting spaces for Freemasons. So that means we have certain responsibilities to help prevent injuries in and around our buildings, right? Obviously, we want to make sure we clean up any spills and watch for any tripping hazards in our building and also around our building, like in the entranceway to our building. So nobody's tripping and falling and injuring themselves that way. Make sure doors open properly. Make sure any hazardous materials, like cleaning materials, are properly stored. Check regularly for hazards. Keep the building well lit. Again, a poorly lit building means people are more likely to trip and fall. Pay attention to what's around your building as well. If there's an issue on the sidewalk of some sort, contact your local municipality, ask them to fix it. We in Freemasonry can also, to our credit, and just as much as anywhere else, help prevent injuries, primarily and obviously to those who are using our buildings. So there is that as well. Well, it depends on the building itself and what it's being used for. Like Detroit Masonic Temple, right, is a public building. It regularly hosts Christmas parties, celebrations, banquets, concerts, comedians, weddings, graduation ceremonies, and a million other events for the public. It has, it organized regularly tours, things of that nature. Just because something is a public building doesn't mean you can go into it 24 hours a day. A restaurant is a public space. Well, it's private property that invites the public into it. That doesn't mean that it is open to the public all the time, or you can just walk into it without, purchasing food. But many of our Masonic buildings are used for public events, public celebrations, testing, vaccination clinics, a million different things. Yeah, I saw that. I mean, it's annoying that he always feels the need to get himself into everything, but what are you going to do? Who has the most spiritual pressure within Freemasonry? I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what it means, spiritual pressure. By the way, once more, though, I just want to remind people today is Natural Injury Prevention Day. So take a few moments in your Masonic buildings to look around, see if there is anything that will potentially encourage or otherwise result in an injury, especially trip and fall accidents, bad lighting, and see if you can fix them up or get them into good condition, have building inspections, things like that. We are going to keep hanging out and wait to see who joins. I did want to talk about Detroit Masonic Temple, speaking of. Yes, Nam. I mean, most of my dad's relatives are still in England. All of them, actually, I think. Unless some I don't know of. My mom's side is all here in Canada. My dad's side is all in the United Kingdom. I don't know much about them. I mean, I love all animals, so um, whether I think they're cute. I don't know. I think they're very cute. maybe it's just because it's true and not a cover at all, right? I would never argue for panda extinctions. Yes, I play video games. My favorite video game is Evil Dead Part 2, or Evil Dead, Dead Space Part 2. I don't spend a lot of time playing video games because it's not like I'm not a gamer, but I enjoy it. Okie dokie, he did. Met a Canadian girl, and that's how that goes. You got to watch out for Canadian girls. They'll steal your men and bring them back to Canada. Halifax. I haven't spent a lot of time in Vancouver, but I've been to Halifax a couple of times and really loved it. I will not be doing that, Leo. Nam. I don't know who Ruben is. All right, so I did want to discuss something that is, it's a little bit more of a contentious issue amongst Freemasonry at the moment, and it is what looks like an unfortunate situation. And it's not a situation I know all of the details about. So you need to keep in mind that, what I'm saying is going to be very, it's based on the information I have at the moment. But I live, as people may know, I live in Windsor, Ontario, which is literally, and where I live, it's literally 20 minutes, if that, to the Detroit Masonic Temple, assuming there's no issues at the border or crossing the border. And the Detroit Masonic people, which was started to be built in 1920, if I recall correctly, and opened in 1927. Sorry, opened in, let me double check this. Let me get the dates correct. Sorry, it opened on February 22nd, 1926. So it did this year, and I just want to double check that, celebrate its 100th anniversary. Yes, Mayo and Oreos is right about that. Do not be putting anybody's phone numbers in the chat. Um, Otherwise, you're going to find yourself removed. So thank you, Mayo, for that one. Hello from Somalia. So Detroit is the largest Masonic temple in the world, on this date celebrating its 100th anniversary. On this year, celebrating its 100th anniversary. Unfortunately, there was a news release sent out by the Detroit Masonic Library. All right, now I'm going to put you in a timeout for a little bit. And we have here the release that they just sent out on July 2nd, 2026. I just want to read this. Masonic Library of Detroit, name change and relocation. Our name has changed a few times over the past 143 years, but our mission has always remained the same, to preserve the rich history of Freemasonry in Detroit. With this in mind, we have decided to readopt our original 1862 name, Masonic Library of Detroit. These changes will be gradually rolled out over the coming weeks and months. We feel this historic name better represents our broader purpose and is more appropriate following recent events. On June 30th, 2026, the long-standing lease for our space on the fourth floor of the Detroit Masonic of the Detroit Masonic Temple expired, and the Masonic Temple Association of Detroit declined to offer a renewal lease. We are deeply saddened by having to leave our home of 100 years, but we remain steadfast in our mission, particularly the preservation and digitization of our historic documents and 10,000 volume collection of Masonic books. Our new business address for donations and correspondence is 1401 West Fort Street, number 32090, Detroit, Michigan 48233. Well, we have thoroughly enjoyed providing engaging and informative tours of the Detroit Masonic Temple in partnership with the Masonic Temple Association of Detroit for the past decade. As of February 2026, the Masonic Temple Association terminated our operating agreement without notice. We are unaware of what plans the Masonic Temple Association may have for tours going forward. We will certainly miss sharing our knowledge, passion, and love of the Detroit Masonic Temple with our brothers, as well as the public at large. We wish the Detroit Masonic Temple a happy centennial anniversary and wish the Masonic Temple Association of Detroit success in their future endeavors. For further inquiries, please contact us at info@masoniclibrarydetroit.org. So, a lot of people are describing this as huge Masonic news and a giant deal. Look, at the end of the day, Freemasonry will continue. The Detroit Masonic Temple will continue, and the now named Masonic Library of Detroit will continue. I think that what this goes into is a more important discussion about the role our Masonic buildings play in particularly the preservation of the craft and the preservation of the records, documents, archives, and history of the craft, right? Which is the goal of the Masonic Library of Detroit, right? The mission, as they say, has always remained the same: to preserve the rich history of Freemasonry in Detroit. So the question is, obviously, Freemasonry in Detroit is more than one building, even if it is the biggest Masonic building in the world. It's more than the Detroit Masonic Temple. And part of me feels like if the Detroit Masonic Temple wants to go in a different direction, for whatever reason, and not include within it the library and archives of Detroit Freemasonry, maybe they want to use that space for more public events to earn more money. Maybe they want to use that space for more Masonic meeting spaces or meeting venues. Who knows, right? I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is ultimately the purpose of any Masonic building? Is it simply to provide a meeting place for Freemasons, full stop, and anything else beyond that is extra? Is it to provide both an economic space a meeting place for Freemasons combined with a public venue to increase the reach and the relevance of Freemasonry in our communities? Is it meant to be a place for Masons to meet, but also a place to preserve the history of Freemasonry in that area by providing a space for record keeping, document collection, and historical relevance? Or is it world domination? It's soccer. So look, I'm incredibly saddened. I'm just putting in something here quickly. If I could do this, Masonic, oops. Masonic record keeping historical. So, do you think our Masonic buildings, that's the poll question, and that's coming from this news release I just read. Right? My very simple answer to this, as someone who absolutely loves the Detroit Masonic Temple, and as someone who absolutely loves Detroit Freemasonry, and as somebody who absolutely loves the the history of Freemasonry in Detroit, and as somebody who absolutely loves all of the above, my answer to what a lot of people are saying for this is wait and see, right? First of all, I do not know what the Detroit Masonic Temple plans to do with that fourth floor space that was initially kept and used by the Masonic Library of Detroit, including the 10,000 volumes and historical documents, right? I don't know what the Detroit Masonic Temple wants to do with that space, but if they can use that space to get more money for the building through renting out to the public, or if they can use it for additional Masonic meeting spaces and the creation of more Masonic lodges, then I think that might be a good thing in the long term. By the same token, I don't know what physical space the Masonic Library of Detroit will find for its collection, will find for its digitization efforts, but doing so may provide some opportunities to meet with a different set of people, a new group of people, to form partnerships with groups outside of the normal Masonic partners, like maybe the Detroit Historical Society. Right, I don't want to immediately be too negative about this. I do, as someone who loves both the library and archives and the Detroit Masonic Temple, I was at first disappointed to hear the news. I think most people were. But I also think, look, these buildings have to make sometimes tough decisions. At the same time, and by the same token, the Masonic Library, which has been an incredible part of Freemasonry in Detroit and the Detroit Masonic Temple, may now have an opportunity to branch out and develop new relationships with different historical groups. Because the history of Freemasonry in Detroit is part of the history of Detroit. It's not simply and exclusively of interest to Freemasons. So I guess what I'm saying is wait and see what happens. But I think this goes into a broader question of to what extent are our Masonic buildings and should our Masonic buildings be responsible for the preservation of the history of Freemasonry in an area? To what extent should they prioritize economic growth? To what extent should they prioritize public engagement and public involvement? And to what extent should they prioritize Masonic meeting venues and Masonic meeting spaces? And I don't think it's 100% any one thing. But I do think listing out the priorities is incredibly important and matters quite a bit. And I guess the Detroit Masonic Temple has decided that they are viewing, I guess they've decided that the idea that they're responsible to assist with the preservation of historical documents, they want to go in a different direction. And if that direction is to focus more on financial growth through having additional space to rent out, or Masonic meeting spaces, or even maybe spaces to film things within the building, which has been used as a filming location before. So I guess what I'm saying is wait and see. Wait and see what the Masonic Temple does with that space, and wait and see where the Masonic Library of Detroit ends up. It might ultimately end up being a success on both sides. Shelby, who's Lucifer? Well, Lucifer is a myth. I'm not Christian. Most would say Lucifer refers to Satan, although for me personally, I know some people say Lucifer is a separate entity, almost a Prometheus type of figure. My dad was a Mason. Can I get in by birth? Jeremy, I don't stream on weekends, right? As a general rule, I don't stream on weekends. I'll do like posts and videos and shorts on the weekend, especially my personal channel. But I start streaming Mondays, 1 p.m. Eastern, and go till Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, with 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. meeting times. None of that is true, Lucifer. It's a Locker, geez, I said Lucifer. None of that is true, Locker. My dad was a Mason, can I get in by birth? No. Freemasonry has nothing to do with, like, you don't get into Freemasonry because your dad was a Freemason. It's not about being born into it. If you're a good person and honorable and you want to join, you will get in and you'll become a Freemason whether your dad was a Freemason or not. Did I drink the milk today? What milk? I do like milk as a rule of thumb. Hello, Smoky Bandit. The average stream, it depends. I mean, I've done streams that are 24 hours in length, and I'm going to do one actually on the weekend on my personal account. But as a general rule, I'd say 2 to 5 hours. It is not satanic, Smokey and Bandit. Freemasonry is not satanic. It has nothing to do with Satanism or Satan or Lucifer. There's no such thing as Grand Wizard. I keep telling you, Locker, stop saying that. There's no such thing as Grand Wizard, at least not in Freemasonry. And I guess your personal life and how many women you have been with is irrelevant to being a Freemason. Um, well, kickball will make the most sense to call it. Sometimes I do, Jeremy. There needs to be a special occasion or a special reason for it, like the fireworks, right? And doing a 24-hour stream in preparation for the fireworks. That was one example, but it's rare. It doesn't happen that often. Usually it's a Monday to Friday thing. But not to say that I won't at times get on a weekend stream, but there usually needs to be a special reason for it. We do not worship Moloch. There's no worshiping of Moloch in Freemasonry. Freemasonry is not a religion, so it's not set up to worship any deities of any sort, Moloch or otherwise. Freemasonry is literally a brother of charity. I mean, all I did was give money. If that's all you're doing, then that's not good. Charity is a very important part of Freemasonry, but obviously that can't be the exclusive part of it. Um, right. This idea of if you're in that case, John, you're kind of treating Freemasonry like a gym membership where people, and it happens all the time where people get a gym membership, they give their money to it every year, and they never show up. Thank you for the star, which is not I guess the gym appreciates it, they get your money, but you're not going to get healthy or fit if you're not exercising, you're just paying money for no reason. Um, I made some good associations. I mean, ultimately, John, if that was the case, then you don't stick around Freemasonry. Joining Freemasonry is no different than anything else. It's a leap of faith. As much as you can try to get to know the brothers and try to learn about Freemasonry, you're still never going to know truly if it's for you or not unless you join. What I do find though is, generally speaking, the more time you spend with somebody before they join and the more time you spend with somebody before they become a Freemason, getting to know them and talking to them about why they want to join and what they hope to get from it, usually you might have a bit more success. But there are people who join, they find out it's not for them, and then they just leave, and that's okay. I always say, though, one of the core kind of ideas within Freemasonry or personality traits that I think can help determine if somebody will enjoy Freemasonry is whether or not they are curious people. If they're curious, they tend to be more active in Freemasonry over a longer period of time. There can be an inner clique within Freemasonry, although when that happens, it's really unfortunate. That's just a lodge by lodge thing, right? Different lodges have different kind of cliques that form, but when you have a personal or an inner circle clique, that can be very damaging to the camaraderie of a lodge, and it makes brethren feel excluded. So different lodges have different types of regalia, it'd be called. I personally think Canadian regalia is really nice. My understanding is it's a gentleman club where essentially no. I mean, so it is a club, or a civic group. I mean, when you say where they hold each other to a higher standard, I mean, sure. Like in the same way, if you're part of a team, the team will hold you to a higher standard, right? Like if I'm on a football team, that team is going to set standards or expectations for me, whether it be showing up for practice or keeping myself fit or being there for my teammates. And so, sure, I think whenever you're part of a group or an organization, the natural consequence of that is you are held to a higher standard because um, you're not just there for yourself, you're there for the team, you're there for everybody, which is a really good thing and something that, having others to hold you to account can be really helpful. Having said that, um, and when you say help each other, I mean, you need to be really careful, Buckeye, about what you mean by help each other. So if somebody calls me and says, I need you to help me move this body, my answer is going to be no. And I will call the police. Or, if somebody calls me and says, I need you to help me commit this scam, my answer is going to be no. And I'm going to call the police. The idea that Freemasons will just help each other with anything, including things that are illegal or unethical, is not the case. In fact, we're instructed to not do that. Now, sure, because I have a larger network, if a brother, for example, needs assistance with, needs help moving on a Friday night, I'll help him move on a Friday night or whatever it might be. The beautiful thing about having friends and having a social support system and safety net is, yeah, you can help each other out. And then for the last one, Buckeye, when you said, business, if you're joining Freemasonry because you think you're going to get a leg up in business or a leg up in police or whatever it is, you're not, and you're going to be disappointed. Right? I mean, sure, people will join Freemasonry absolutely because they want to get advice or connections. Ultimately, though, it's not something for which you're going to be successful, at least in my experience, because the number of Freemasons is so low. But on top of that, like, you can get those connections almost anywhere, right? There's so many different groups and organizations like the Rotary, Elks, the Moose. Joining Freemasonry, if your main goal is business connections or otherwise, it's not something, at least in my experience, that you're going to necessarily get the most out of. But I mean, people did it throughout history, sure. Um, there you go, Bucky. It's just dudes. That's not a bad way to put it at all. Um, well, I mean, circuit. I mean, I'm hesitant when it comes to that stuff to like the thing about like humans, we are naturally political creatures. I don't mean Republican, Democrat. When I say political, what I mean by that is we like to form groups, we like to be around other people. It's kind of our nature. And so the natural results of that is, yeah, as so you spend time with the people you spend time with, right? Like, is it a shock that most musicians have friends that are other musicians? That most doctors have friends that are other doctors? That a lot of Masons have other Masonic friends? It's just human nature. And so it wouldn't shock me that if you're in a, if you're rich, you're going to have more rich friends. If you're poor, you're going to have more poor friends. Um, and so if they are going to congregate amongst, a particular church or institution, that doesn't shock me. It's tribalism. It's also just occurs as just human nature, right? Like, again, I'm closer friends with my neighbors than I am with not my neighbors, and it's just because I see them more. And as a coincidence, because they're my neighbors, we all happen to be of a similar social and economic status, right? In the same way, when people talk about like Elon Musk is friends with Peter Thiel, is friends with Sergey from Google, whatever it is, It's like, yeah, because they're all hanging out together in the same places, in the same circles. Hello, Yo Maple. Thank you for being here. Greetings all. Don't forget, if you guys get the chance, hit like, hit subscribe, super chat, comment, all that jazz. Believe me, it helps out big time and will be much appreciated. Don, if I was gay or straight, would it make a difference? Yeah, this is another good example of it. Everybody on this stream, right? You all become friends because you're all in the same circles of my, you're on the same circles of my, my stream. 19 votes. Do you think our Masonic buildings should be used for Masonic record-keeping historical documents? Yes, 68%, no, 32%. For those who said no, where would you think is better? Do you think a public library or a private off-site location? Well, I don't know why I'm mad at you, Jeremy, but I'm sure there's a reason. Speaking of similar circles, right? Private off-site. Okay, what are your thoughts as to why? Do you think it's just the space could be better used for, the space could be better used for a Masonic meeting or income of some sort? John Anthony, religious implications for, to be a, like Freemasonry is not a religion, so you need to keep that in mind, right? So I know some religions have different views on homosexuality, but it's not something that is connected to Freemasonry in any way. Like you can be gay, you can be straight. I've sat with gay Freemasons and straight Freemasons. Does it make a difference? Well, there are many Masonic libraries throughout the world, and I've talked about some of them in the past. Like Washington, if I recall correctly, has one. United Grand Lodge of England has one. But because Freemasonry is not a centralized or organization, it's decentralized. You know, it would be hard to have a truly universal central library, right? What I mean by that is, you know, it could be the case that you have a library that has all sorts of information about Detroit Freemasonry or about Michigan Freemasonry or about whatever it might be, right? Like you can absolutely have those things. But the records, you know, in Washington State are under the ownership of Washington State Masons. The records in Texas are under the ownership of Texas Masons, and Ontario Masons. So you'd have to get each individual body together to then agree to lend out its records to one central location, which they probably would not do, at least not in my experience. So John, when you say practice a sort of ideology, do you mean Freemasonry? I mean, Freemasonry, I don't even know if I'd use the term ideology. You know, you could say it has an ideology in that it's going to be for things like democracy and tolerance and kindness and charity, and sacrifice. But that's not a religious ideology. Kurz, I'm just saying certain religions have ideas about homosexuality. Freemasonry does not. We have gay Masons and straight Masons. And all are welcome. So long as you are good and honorable and true. That's the most important thing. That's what matters. One of my favorite quotes was, the key and most basic thing within Freemasonry is to be good and honorable. Everything else is up for interpretation, which is something I tend to agree with as a general rule. 20 votes, 70 yes, 30 no. I mean, here's one of the things I keep in mind, right? Masonic record keeping and records are incredibly important as a way to bridge our past with our present and to learn from the past for the future. However, I think, you know, we in Freemasonry have always been pretty decent, if we're being completely fair, about maintaining our records, and it hasn't resulted in, you know, a bunch of Freemasons joining or growth in the craft, certainly not in the last 50 years. It seems to me that what's far more likely to result in growth within our Masonic lodges and within our Masonic buildings and within Freemasonry is a greater amount of relevance and a greater amount of people coming into our buildings and using our buildings for special events, celebrations, whatever it might be. Now, to Detroit's credit, and the library's credit, the tours that they held absolutely brought people in to check out the buildings, absolutely brought people in to learn about Freemasonry in Detroit. But my question is, if they can use that space to get even more people into the building, using the building, connecting with the building, then I think that that's maybe a better use. I just need to know. Again, that's why I'm saying we don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen with that building, with that space. But if they are able to use it to bring in a greater number of members or a greater number of Masonic activities or a greater number of public activities, I think that is a good trade-off. If they don't, and if it either becomes a dead space or a space that results in less people joining the craft, then or be part of these buildings, and I think it's a worse thing. Well, Mayo, I mean, it doesn't shock me. Unfortunately, Freemasons are human beings, and part of being human is we are not, as much as I like to think otherwise, we are not um, immune from either the prejudices of our time or the prejudices of our communities. And so, yeah, I think it's really unfortunate that he would say that, but I'm sure it happens. I can just tell you, I've had many Masons over the years I've known who are gay, and it's perfectly fine by me, and sit next to a gay Freemason, no issue. That is true, John Anthony. Freemasonry does require a faith in a supreme being. It does not have to be uniform faith. We have Muslim Freemasons, Hindu, Sikh, Jewish, Christian of different denominations. So absolutely. Hello, QIQI. Thank you for being here. Please hit like. Please hit subscribe. I have no idea what a trouser trout masonry is. I've never put anyone's trousers. I've never put a trout in anyone's trouser. Yes, Yo Maple is absolutely correct. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Patreon. Believe me, all of that stuff helps out big time. And would be truly, truly appreciated. Jeremy, you get used to some weird people on these streams, believe me. It's just kind of part of what it is. I don't know what that is, Randy, but it sounds highly questionable. "22 votes. Do you think our Masonic building should be used for Masonic record keeping?" Yes is higher than no. Some people are just miserable. You're absolutely right. And it's unfortunate that some people use that misery to, shit on other people trying to make the world a better place or help somebody. I would say it's always a nice thing to be charitable and to help those around you. I would also say, though, just make sure that you remember when you give money to someone who's homeless, whatever it is, ultimately you're making a choice and you can't be disappointed if they don't use the money the way you'd want them to. Um, but I think, good for you for trying to help somebody. You should be proud. John, what do you mean by that? Like, there shouldn't be an emphasis on, do you mean internal politics? Or do you mean like how people vote? Because those are different things, right? Like how people vote is how people vote. But any organization, it's one of those things where every organization, I don't care whether it's Freemasonry or the Elks or the Moose, is going to have internal politics. It's just the nature of human beings when they get together, especially because Freemasonry, or especially because this is democratic, right? And that means people want different offices. It's just the nature of an organization. Now, what you need to do is keep those politics. I don't like this term, but we're going to use it anyways. Is keeping those terms, keeping the politics from being toxic, keeping it, remembering that at the end of the day we're all brothers and we're all here for a singular purpose, which is to be there for one another. See, that's strange because obviously, John, you should not discuss politics or religion in a lodge. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm saying it should. It shouldn't happen. Ketchup chips. I'm being a good Canadian. I said it before. Do not put ketchup chips in. Sorry, do not put ketchup on a hot dog because um, you should not put ketchup on a hot dog because that is terrible. But I will eat ketchup chips. There you go. Why not? I mean, believe me, there are times when I was very happy to be unpopular. Honestly, why not? I don't know if you're making a joke or not, but believe me, there are times when being unpopular is going to be a really good thing and you're going to really appreciate being unpopular. As someone who unfortunately has found himself within Freemasonry and within life at times very popular and at times very unpopular. Some of the times where I got the most accomplished and the most done was when I was unpopular. Because when you're unpopular, you don't have to think about, will I piss this person off? Will I not do this right? What if I get everybody to be mad at me? It's like if I'm already unpopular anyways, who gives a shit? I'll just do my job and do what I think is right and let the chips fall where they may. Um, Daniel is correct. Yes. Just those are good toppings. Also pickles. By the way, for all of my broke people out there, because I'm currently broke, although I got some payments coming in soon. If you're ever looking for a really cheap, easy meal that you can get a lot of calories, bang for your buck, go to 7-Eleven, get a hot dog, but then you can load it with cheese, with chili, and with all of the fixings like onions, pickles, olives. Just fill it to the brim with everything. You get like double the amount of calories for the same price, and it's really, really good. Um, so that's my little piece of advice. I know 7-Eleven probably doesn't want me giving that advice, but that's my advice to you. And if you're going to help me be able to afford more than just hot dogs, become a Patreon. You can become a Patreon at, $5 a month. It helps out big time. And you get some cool stuff. So I think IQ test, yeah, Mayo. I'm strongly disagreeing with that as well. First of all, I'm not convinced that I'm not convinced that IQ is a good measurement of intelligence. Um, I think that's a I think that's a very bad idea. Because A, I don't think IQ is a good measure of intelligence. And I don't think there is a decent test of intelligence. But even if there was, stupid people should have the right to say what they think just as much as smart people, at least in a political sense. Um, really, Kurz. Um, I know that one hack, that's for sure. Um, yeah, Mayo, just calm down a bit. Keep in mind, arguing on the stream, people can't hear sarcasm. So let's not be making fun of other people on the stream. Um, so, Kurz, I mean, I want to be careful about that because I don't know if fish or shrimp used for bait are treated differently than shrimp or fish used for consumption, if there's a difference in how it's prepared or preserved. So I'm not going to recommend eating them unless, you talk to a doctor first. But there's a million hacks out there, believe me. The hot dog thing is a good one. Um, and that's something I've taken advantage of many times while traveling. So, casinos, if you have a problem with gambling, don't go. But I will say, if you are able to go there and not gamble, casinos are very often great places to go as well if you're traveling because aside from the free air conditioning, they very often have free drinks, free coffee, free sodas, free juice, um, free water bottles. So that's another thing you can take advantage of. Hello, hello, Wisconsin. All right, Robert. Again, I've never tried bait shrimp, so I have no idea how they taste. I'll just say, if you have any concerns, always talk to a doctor about, because I don't know. I feel like regular shrimp or shrimp that people use for consumption is probably treated a different way than bait shrimp. And why not is not wrong about that. There have been times, believe me, where getting myself to a Masonic lodge and knowing they would have dinner saved my butt. So yes, you can save a lot of money at Masonic lodges every night. It's the old joke about like, the Mason who's been around for 30 years and hasn't eaten dinner at home in 30 years. There's some truth to that. Now, you shouldn't join a Masonic lodge because you want to get free food, but there's nothing wrong with taking advantage of it if you're so lucky. Because you're part of the group, you're part of the organization, and part of that means you're part of refreshment. Now, you should never take it for granted, right? And not care about and not think about, for example, how you can give back to the lodge, which you absolutely should do. Yes, and why not is correct. You're also, just by being there, you're visiting the lodge. That's a huge help. Visitors is what makes Freemasonry special. And it can be so helpful to a lodge. It's absolutely something you should look at doing. Sea bug? No, I mean I mean, lobsters, crustaceans, they are like shrimps. They are types of sea bugs. I love them though, but they are related to cockroaches, apparently. They're part of like a similar family, I guess. A lobster is great. I mean, I've said it before. For me, first and foremost, it's seafood. That's my favorite thing in the world. But they're really, really good. I will say that. QI. I'm not sure what you mean by what's stronger or comes first, because those are kind of different questions. So within Freemasonry, what comes first is going to be your family and your work and your deity or your religion. So if you are trying to set your priorities, you absolutely have to set your priorities being your family, your wife, your kids, your church first, and you put those ahead of being a Freemason. In terms of what's a stronger connection, like I think most Masons would say they feel strongly connected more so to their wife, to their kids, than to their Masonic lodge. When it comes to their friends, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's tough. Being a Mason does not inherently create a strong connection unless you're putting in the work. But certainly what comes first is going to be your family, more so than anything else. Um, well, you make vows until death when you're married, till death do us part. I don't like, what do you mean by, do you mean your Masonic obligations? Because within Masonic obligations, you have to take an obligation as well. Presumably, you're meant to keep them until you die. I mean, it's any obligation, you're kind of, unless there's a time limit on it, you're meant to keep it until you die. But that obligation is not telling you to put Freemasonry ahead of your family or your wife. I mean, Kurz, I've always kind of had that thought as well, in the sense that, like, yeah, I feel bad about animals that are killed that they may, I mean, who knows? They may have family connections and familial connections. At the same time, we as human beings, right, we're evolved to eat, in my opinion, the fact that we are able to and we are able to derive a great deal of nutrition from animals makes me think that we're supposed to eat them in the same way a lion is supposed to eat an elk. Now, we can also choose to be vegan and vegetarian, and that's perfectly fine. But I don't think there's anything morally wrong with, eating animals. Obligations are good. Obligations remind us that we belong to something greater than ourselves and bigger than ourselves, John Anthony. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is, like, sometimes people will, for a variety of reasons, try to avoid obligations because they don't want to feel like they're beholden to anything. But I think if you do that, ultimately it's not good because you end up never really challenging yourself or never really testing yourself. Um, Jim Bob, everything did. The song Purple Rain is a great song, I'll say that. CERN, what's the discussion about music sounding different? Obligations are a great way to smoothen out. They are, alchemical god. I would agree with that. They're a great way to make you a better person. I don't think an obligation, though, needs to be so formal, right? Like, I think if you wake up in the morning and you say, I'm going to get healthy, so long as you're willing to treat that as an obligation and say, okay, I'm going to do the things I need to do to make myself healthy, that counts, right? Or if you go to court and you take an obligation to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that's a public obligation. But both of them can be valuable, both of them can be beneficial, both of them can be healthy. It's up to you to figure out how to make it work, um, and not let yourself down. Whatever you say, I love Prince, and Purple Rain is an incredible song. Incredible movie as well. Kind of gets underappreciated, I think. I'd like to work in a soup kitchen. I mean, circuit, obviously, you got to feed the wife, you got to feed the kids, you got to look after them first. If you ever do get the chance, though, volunteering at a soup kitchen, and many Masonic lodges actually do volunteer at soup kitchens very often, they can absolutely, in my experience, help, provide a great sense of purpose, make you feel good. They can be wonderful. So if you get the chance, I'd recommend it. I know a few Masons who volunteer at soup kitchens. So CERN is out of, it's the Large Hadron Collider, right? We should steal the Declaration of Independence today. AX, I support that, or ASC, I support that 100%. Yeah, and many Masons are involved in charity work at all, as charity work also, right? So they do not have a map on the back of the Declaration of Independence. I'm very sorry. I know people want there to be one, but there's not. What was the documentary? Was it by any chance called National Treasure? I mean, he could be. He could just be wrong. I don't see how CERN would affect the frequency of music. I mean, like I said, CERN, I love scientific exploration. I think that stuff is really, really cool, but it's definitely not something I know much about. Okay, so what would you challenge about that? Or why would you challenge that? Might be the better question. I read Plato's Republic a long time ago. Like we're talking 20, 25 years ago. What were the other two, Kurz? You probably have more time than you think, Jim Bob. But even if you like running out of time for what? Graffiti, Bridge, and Under the Cherry Moon. Okay, I'll have to look those up. I just knew about Purple Rain. I don't think so. Sorry, Jim. I'm not one who believes in the supernatural. I think very often we feel what we want to feel. I've not felt any indication that, quote unquote, there is anything different in the air in the world. So sorry, but no. Because as humans, we are too limited to really know. So declaring, moving, more about accepting authority. Okay, so you're saying because we can't know for sure if there's a supreme being, requiring that people believe in one ultimately is um, ultimately is requiring. So I'm not sure the second part. So you're right about the first part. We are too limited to really know about any type of being that is, you know, we are too limited to know about any type of being that is quote unquote eternal or omnipotent or anything like that. The second part, though, why is it that it requires authority? Like that part, I'm not quite sure I get. Expanding our scientific knowledge is a way for us to escape. Why not? I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I think we are all, because as was pointed out, we are so limited in our abilities. We are so limited in so many things and in so many ways. We need to rely on science and we need to rely on scientific understanding to help us engage in the world around us. For example, we are limited with our senses. We can see a lot of different things, but we can't see in infrared. But through scientific advancement and through the study of science. We can discover infrared rays and look through them or look with them. Okay, QI. That's an interesting way to put it. I guess I would say I would disagree on a couple of different points. First, I think belief in a supreme being does not inherently require submission to that supreme being. Now, in many religions, it does. But, for example, I believe my supreme being is the rational nature of the universe as expressed through science and as expressed through geometry. Now, because I believe in that, I have to submit to that because I can't break the rules of physics. I can't break the rules of geometry. I can try as much as I want. I'm never going to be able to draw a square that has five sides. But I don't think belief in a supreme being inherently leads to submission to that supreme being or to submission to anyone here on earth. I think very often it's, in fact, the opposite. There are some people who believe in a supreme being but try to rebel against that supreme being. So I would say no. I've never heard any Mason who's claimed that they themselves are a supreme being, but I would say no to that because, if that is the case and you believe that you are your own supreme being, then what would affect your conscience if you were to break an obligation or a rule, right? You may choose to break a rule, but if you don't feel like there's anything above you, you're not going to necessarily feel as bad about it. It's the reason why in a court of law they make you swear on a Bible or a Quran or whatever it is, right? But I don't think the belief in a supreme being is inherent to submission to that supreme being. It can be, but it's not inherently the case. Really, Jim Bob, I did not know that, but that's really interesting. Although what I will say is, I will say I think the idea of submission to something greater than yourself is not such a bad thing. I think maybe in our society, we should recognize there are things beyond us or above us, and it might be worth considering submission to them, even if you don't believe in, let's say, the Christian God, which I'm not a Christian, just to believe that nature has some level of control over our lives, which is true. But to recognize that might give us a bit more humility and be a bit more willing to not make so many, shall we say, foolish decisions. Circuit. What type of music do you produce? That's really, really cool. Ion propulsion is very cool. Again, that's something I know anything about either. We are down some interesting rabbit holes. I will say I love music. I've said it before. I think music is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. And I still believe that to be the case. Well, I definitely think the beginning of wisdom is humility. And why not? I think that's a really good way to put it. Absolutely. That I know nothing for sure. Now, eventually, you do have to, even though you can't know anything for sure, you do need to start making some educated guesses, right? Like, I don't know for sure that when I leave my house, somebody's not going to come in and steal all my stuff. Or I don't know for sure when I leave the house I will get hit by a car. I don't know for sure that there are not any invisible leprechauns in my house wreaking havoc when I'm gone and just cleaning up, right? All I can do Well, admitting I don't know and could be wrong, rely upon the most obvious and the most likely and the most rational explanations at any given point, and you just go from there. And that's true for Freemasonry as well. Like I've said this before, one of the biggest issues I have is people will say to me on like social media, how do you know that Freemasonry isn't actually being run by a secret cabal of evil people who are trying to take over the world or something to that effect, right? How do you know that's not the case? And my answer is always, I can't know for sure. Obviously, if they're very good at hiding their intentions and themselves, then I guess they're very good at hiding. All I can do is use my common sense, my observations, and the most rational observations I can find to say that, within 20 years of Freemasonry, I've never seen any evidence that that is the case. And hopefully, you would think that would be sufficient. Because you can't live your life always going, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? At a certain point, you have to use the most likely, common, rational, and observable thing. I studied sound pollution, which is phenomenal. I mean, I love the idea of sound because he was not a highest level Freemason, Aleister Crowley. He was clandestine, more than likely. I do find sound certainly very interesting because as a Freemason, I love geometry, and the geometry of sound I find fascinating, right? Sound is ultimately a pattern, waves, things of that nature. And so it has a geometry to it, it has a shape to it. I do find that really interesting. Yes, you can. Many people leave with Masonic lodges or break with them all the time. You just stop going and stop paying your dues. That's the simplest way to do it, by and large. But sure, many people decide Freemasonry is not for them and decide to walk away. I do not know what LRAD is. So what is LRAD? And by the way, if you're new to this stream, please don't forget, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, let me know. Long range. Or is that the type of thing they did? Like, I remember dealing with cults and trying to get them out of buildings. They would like shoot loud, annoying music into their buildings that they'd have to listen to. But the high frequency, you can still hear it, right? I'm sure the dogs hear it even louder. But there are certain types of animals that can hear things at different frequencies than humans. I don't think there is a standard tuning for instruments, right? Everybody can kind of pick their own, if I'm not mistaken. What would the reason be? I mean, other than history can be fickle, and unfortunately, very often it will destroy things over time as they get older. I mean, this stuff is interesting, but it's something I know very little about. So, almost nothing about, really, other than I love music. But it'd be fun to look into. I mean, Mozart was a Freemason, famously enough. Nat King Cole, Brad Paisley. Well, I've no doubt that we've lost many church bells throughout history. I feel like there's an implication that it's something nefarious, which I don't necessarily see how it could be. I think more often than not, over time, buildings just go into disrepair and disrepute. I mean, you look at like Masonic buildings. How many Masonic buildings have been lost throughout history? It's really unfortunate. 33W lasers. Are you creating your own lasers, alchemical? I would just recommend everybody be careful if you're doing that. I don't know what would happen, but I feel like you might risk blowing something up. Allegedly, the Nazis standardized to 440 hertz. Interesting. I mean, I've never heard of that before. I don't know what it even means precisely to tune your instruments to 440 degrees hertz. If you're using a laser, yes, always wear eye protection is probably also very good advice. I mean, this would be kind of a fun thing to look into. Again, as someone who knows pretty much nothing about any of this, I could see it being really fun to study this and look more into it. I wish I could say already that I knew much about it, but I don't. Let's look it up. Let's see. I don't even know what to type in. Here, let's try this. Is there universal tuning for music? Typing that into Google to see what it says. So the standard universal tuning for musical instruments in Western music is A440. The note A above middle C vibrating at 440 hertz. Standardized globally in 1939 and designated as ISO 16, it ensures that instruments manufactured or played anywhere can play harmoniously together. While A440 is the acceptable baseline, the broader universal ecosystem has few other key variables. Concert pitch is A442, A443 for a brighter tone, or A415 for authentic Baroque. Temperaments, fretted instruments. So apparently, if you're hearing music, it should be pitched to 440 hertz. I mean, I think music can do a lot of really good things, but I agree. I don't think music can cure disease directly. Although, one of my favorite quotes ever about medicine, it comes from this ancient Greek doctor, Aeschylus. I think that was his name. And he said, medicine consists of amusing the patient while nature cures the disease. There's probably some truth to that. I think for a lot of people, ultimately, it's just a matter of time to cure the disease. But you need to, for lack of a better term, cure the patient first, whatever that might mean. Or amuse the patient first, whatever that might mean. I don't know why they removed all the church bells and stopped tuning music to them. Conspiracy theories can be fun, but you need to be really careful with them at the same time, right? The danger of conspiracy theories is obviously what you end up with is people become so invested in them that they end up ignoring family, ignoring friends, ignoring the people around them, ignoring their work responsibilities because A, they become invested in these conspiracy theories, but at the same time they can begin to feel like like things are incredibly hopeless with them and in their life, which can be a very dangerous thing. Because one thing conspiracy can do is very often remove what people feel like is their agency in life, right? It's like, why work on anything? Why do anything when the world is being run by this global cabal of evil Freemasons or something? You're right. I mean, the way that you try to deal with your cancer is by talking to a doctor and following medical advice. Um, some medical advice is not the best. I mean, my advice is always going to be, as I'm not a doctor, is talk to your doctor and listen to your doctor. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't ask any questions. That doesn't mean that you just do whatever the doctor tells you. But that also means you exist with a level of humility and a level of kind of decency around these questions, right? You should be taking the time to talk to your doctor and also respecting the fact that if he went to medical school and you didn't, and if he's been practicing medicine for 20 years and you haven't, you do not know as much as him. And you therefore have a responsibility to work with him to try and figure out how you can best, tackle whatever problem it is you're facing. I do worry when people said above, right? The start of wisdom is knowing you're not wise. I think that is a very important thing when it comes to Freemasonry, as well as medicine, as anything else. Understand that a true source of wisdom is being humble enough to understand what you don't know and being humble enough to rely on experts, be they doctors or nurses or mechanics or pilots if you're flying. No one would get on an airplane and say, I truly believe that I'd be a better pilot than this pilot, and it's my right to that opinion. You have to rely on third-party experts. If that happens, and hopefully they are brought to account if there's been medical malpractice. The fool thinks he knows everything while the wise man knows he knows nothing. There's a lot of truth to that, John Anthony. There is a lot of truth. I think you can find a balance as well, I think, to be fair, right? I understand that just because you don't know everything, it doesn't mean that you cannot try to find proper answers as well. Like, it's just about being humble. I know it sounds like a simple thing, but it's just about being humble. And it's just about having a level and a layer of humility to yourself and the way you interact with the people around you. Belgium. Welcome from Belgium. I hope you like and subscribe. 42 in France. Oof, Minotaur. Keep yourself safe. Don't be, drink lots of water. Don't spend too much time outside. Wear loose-fitting clothing if you have to go outside. But just keep yourself safe. And I hope they're doing well. I can't prove something isn't true, but I can demonstrate it is very likely. And James, sometimes that's all. I mean, I've used that example a million times when it comes to Freemasonry. I can't prove that it isn't true that there's a secret cabal of Masons ruling the world, but I can demonstrate why it's very, very unlikely. And because it's very, very unlikely, what you can do, about it. Should I go for a run in this 33? I mean, Alchemo Gold, I would say you just need to be really careful. Make sure that you're properly hydrated. Make sure that you're wearing loose-fitting clothing. Monitor yourself for how you're feeling. If there's any, medical reasons why you shouldn't, then don't. And just listen to the best medical advice. I've gone running in heat. Or not running. I'm in a wheelchair. I've gone traveling in heat. I've wheeled in high heat. I've worked out in high heat. It can be really, really tough. You can feel good when you're finished. Like I said, just protect yourself. Think about how you can best protect yourself. Is kind of my best advice for whatever it's worth. I mean, you say you'll be fine. Don't get cocky, right? Don't get too arrogant about things. That's a sign for disaster as well. Electrolytes are important. Hydration is important. So yes, I agree with all of that very much. also keep in mind, it's not just the temperature that matters, right? A lot of people will say the most important thing is the temperature. It's actually that the temperature combined with the humidity and humidex, because humidity is one of the things that actually keeps you from properly sweating and properly cooling yourself off. It's also daytime and nighttime temperatures that make a big deal. Because if it's way too hot during the day and way too hot at night, one of the consequences of that is your body doesn't get the chance to properly recover. So it's humidity, it's UV. David, yes, Freemasonry has a ton of historical sites. That's one of the best things about Freemasonry, honestly, is all of the incredible historical sites that it has. Detroit, like some of them are registered as historical sites on the Preservation Registry in America and different local registries around the world. Some of them are not registered but are historical. But yes, I mean, so many Masonic buildings were built in the 1920s and the 1950s that, yeah, by definition, they are incredibly important historical sites. Oh, I agree. I'm nothing but impressed with cyclists and their ability to go through this heat. I just think people need to remember that those guys are highly trained athletes. It's their job. They've been doing this stuff for years. One of the bigger dangers, I think, is, um, you know, people will see them able to do the things they're doing, and they'll go, they'll see that, and then they'll go, well, if the Tour de France athletes can do it, so can I. And that's really dangerous because those guys are highly trained athletes. Um, they're not the typical human being who can do those things. So don't see what they're doing and think you can work at the same pace and can just ignore the heat. Um, I'd like to think I know there's more than the physical. Well, I mean, so I would agree. I think there's definitely more than just the physical. But I think you need to be really careful about this idea of like like sometimes when people start to talk about things that aren't the physical, that aren't something they can see or touch or feel, it's very easy at that point for wishful thinking to take over, right? Where I want something to be a certain way, so I'm going to choose to believe it's that way. And I've known people like that who are very spiritual, and as a consequence of that, they start to feel like they don't need to prove their prepositions or their suppositions. And that's a dangerous place to get into. David Thompson, I don't think Freemasonry has been targeted by far left lunatics to the extent that I would believe it. To the extent that Freemasonry has been targeted in a political sense, it's been targeted, I would say, more so on the right than the left. Um, with, let's say, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Sean Ryan. Actually, I don't know about Tucker Carlson, but definitely, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Sean Ryan. So it's more of a right-wing attack than a left-wing attack. But honestly, in my experience and in my opinion, it's been far more of the sense that what's truly targeting Freemasonry is, the how comfortable the couch is, the economic conditions that make people want to spend more time at work, overtime, and less time doing anything else. The cost of gas, which means it's way more expensive to travel to and attend Masonic lodges. The dues going up, economics, all of those things are heavily affecting Freemasonry. What if you've experienced it yourself? But did you experience it yourself, or is it wishful thinking? Right? Like, that's the issue I think people need to keep in mind. Because very often I've seen people say they've experienced something, and it sounds to me like it was a combination of wishful thinking and self hallucinations, in a sense. Like you want to believe in something so much, you choose to believe it's true. So all I can say is I've never had any out of body experiences. I don't exactly know what that would be or look like, but I would question it. We could be in a we could be in a simulation, I suppose. Anything's possible. But I think even if we're in a simulation, it's not going to change how I act day to day, right? I'm not going to go jumping off of tall buildings and say, well, I'm in a simulation, so it doesn't matter, right? You need to keep in mind that simulation or not, this is our world, this is our reality, and we have a responsibility to try to make it better. Um, I don't think you were on drugs. People could, I mean, I do though question whether you had an out of body experience because, again, when it comes to the supernatural, I'm not a big believer in any of it. I think it's a dangerous thing. What I'd say is just make sure you're not using your experience out of body to make day to day life decisions. Um, that would be concerning, perhaps. Out of body experiences? Yeah, I mean, I don't, well, I mean, like, what is the term? What does it mean? I don't know exactly even what, if it means you have a conscious experience separate from your physical self, um, then no, I don't believe it because the experience can happen in the brain. That's it. The brain will always be attached to the body. So, yeah, I don't buy it. No, I understand and feel very much grounded in reality. Okay, I mean, if it helps you to accept things, it helps you to kind of reevaluate and not allow, for lack of a better term, the little things day to day to get you down, then that's a good thing. And if that works for you, then I think that's more power to you. I'm just not one who necessarily puts a lot of faith or stock in, be it an out of body experience or anything like that. Um, well, that's good. I mean, there's always going to be some times and ways in our life where we are powerless, but there's also going to be many times in our life when we have a lot more power than we realize. It sounds to me like your experiences have helped you recognize which is which. Yeah, I don't believe in remote viewing. I think it's baloney. I've heard of it. A friend of mine believed in that stuff. He also got scammed for a lot of money. In my experience, it's just a bunch of baloney. Just so people don't think I'm pouring orange juice in their cereal, my comfort comes from living in the most realistic world possible. This includes giving up beliefs. Well, so your beliefs, yes, it's absolutely the case that sometimes we can have comforting beliefs that ultimately are not benefiting us in the long term, right? And giving up those beliefs can sometimes be painful, but also very often can be extremely helpful for a long term growth and ability. Um, but it's like everything else, you have to figure out for yourself which beliefs you think are holding you back, how, and how best you can deal with them. Right? It doesn't mean you have to give up every single belief you have that brings you comfort, but just the ones that are causing perhaps more long-term challenges to you. I mean, I guess what I'd say is alchemical God. People can look into it for themselves, but I would not be one who'd be relying upon it for any meaningful approaches to life, put it that way. Jim Bob's. If you're trying to leave me a link, Jim Bob, you're not going to be able to. You, YouTube does not usually like links being left on chats, but what you can do is leave it in a comment on one of my videos, and I'll find it that way. At least usually that's the case. Now we got alien abductions in the stream. Again, I don't believe in aliens, so I definitely do not think that you were being abducted. Having said that, it would be a horrifying experience, whatever it is you went through. I think anybody would be horrified by an abduction or something that looks like an abduction for that matter. Again, Jim Bob, we don't see the streams. I mean, I don't see the links. I have no doubt that there is this phenomenon called out of body experiences where people report feeling as though they're having a aware, conscious, physical experience that is taking place outside of their body. Like that's been going on for who knows how long, probably millennia. But what I don't believe is there is an actual experience happening. I think rather it's probably some type of, for lack of a better term, glitch within the human brain that for some people creates an illusion of an out of body experience. I've heard sleep paralysis is terrifying. I've never experienced it, thank heavens, but I've heard it can be quite terrifying. Yeah, alchemical, that's the thing. What matters is whether the experience is subjective or objective. I would say it's subjective, not objective. Um, or it's a DMT produced by the brain. I mean, again, it's an old expression, right? The mind is a monkey. And I've no doubt, in my opinion, there are very many things that we do not know or understand about it. But I don't believe there's a supernatural explanation, right? Yeah, but again, so in Yo Maple, one of my favorite, I really did like the Dune movies, Dune 1 and Dune 2. And in the Dune lore, they have what are called mentats, mentant, if I recall it correctly. Because in the Dune universe, in the science fiction universe, they created, they outlawed artificial intelligence and outlawed computers and thinking machines. And so human beings had to become incredibly adept and advanced at doing these major calculations. And they did so, over time and training. I have no doubt that there's probably some people who are naturally gifted in ways with things like, it could be math or science or music. How many people just pick up randomly, a guitar and immediately know how to play it, right? But I don't think it's supernatural. Alchemical, I mean, I guess what I'll say is we'll see. Maybe there'll be more evidence comes out, but I remain highly skeptical at the moment. Not you, Jim Bob, but somebody above said they were abducted, I think. They had an alien abduction experience or something similar. Um, yeah, somebody said my out of body experience was actually an alien abduction. Now, again, anything's possible, and it's very likely I could be wrong, but I'm not one who believes aliens exist. I think we are alone in the universe. Which is why I hope, by the way, since I think we're alone in the universe, I would hope that we would be a little bit more precious with and protective of life here on Earth if we are truly alone in the universe, because there's no one else to enjoy the universe but us. So let's try to keep as many people alive as we possibly can. Um, well, Jim Bob, you're not the only one talking on the stream. So I think of an. Um, I know for certain with sleep paralysis. Well, so sleep paralysis, that is a real thing, at least based on I've never experienced it, but based on what I've seen. I mean, to my understanding, I don't want to say simply because I'm sure it's terrifying, but to my understanding, it is when you basically are awake and you're experiencing the world around you, but you're not able to move or interact in any way, which I would suspect would be absolutely terrifying. Well, human beings are capable of a lot of things. I'm sure we'll be capable of more things as time goes on, but I don't think we're capable of breaking the laws of physics, put it that way. I mean, I've not looked through them all. I've looked through a couple of them, but again, nothing in them has proven that aliens exist. I think the most likely explanation is a combination of hallucinations, sunspots and reflected light, and then classified military structures from other governments or even our own. Um, what can reasonably explain a physical object appearing on the finest? Well, I would say probably that was an illusion caused by the sun shining off of clouds, or human error. The piece of equipment was miscalibrated. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think the key word there is unidentified. And if something's unidentified, I'm not going to start to believe it was basically the most consequential thing it could be, right? I mean, that's, I think, a really dangerous thing to go, because if aliens truly do exist, that would be the most consequential, I think, discovery in human history. And for that reason, I think it's very dangerous to believe it, right? You can keep an open mind and say it's possible, and it's possible it's aliens, but I'm not going to put any stock in the belief. Um, I mean, how many things throughout history have people thought were one thing only to discover it's something completely different? Um, Maybe I'm also not, some of these pieces of equipment, I'm not completely willing to ignore the idea of human error. Like the machines were calibrated in a manner that's improper and starts showing readings that aren't actually there. I basically, thank you, John. I basically think when it comes to this, you can, the healthiest and the best answer is we don't know, and there's yet to be any definitive proof. Anything beyond that, if you're choosing to believe it's aliens, I think you're taking a big risk, because that is such a consequential belief. Like, that's the type of thing that changes people's religions. That's the type of thing that changes people's attitudes toward life. That's the type of thing that changes how we interact with one another, our technology. It's a heck of a thing to believe without definitive proof. The bigger the claim, the more proof I want. Um, and I don't think we have that at this point in at any real close. So my belief would probably be a hallucination and a memory, but we don't know for sure, right? on the person who makes the claim to prove the claim. Well, that's true, right? And or at least prove it to a point that I'm willing to believe in it. And the more extraordinary the claim is, the more proof I'm going to need, right? I'm not willing to just go based on likely. Questioning is much better than accept. I mean, what's the old expression? Jim Bob, one of my favorites. I'd rather have questions. I'd rather have answers I can, or how to go. I'd rather have questions I can't answer than answers I can't question. I think that's the best approach to take for a lot of this stuff, right? I don't mind having questions I can't answer, but when people tell me they have answers, that concerns me quite a bit. Social media is social media. It's a big part of it, and you just kind of got to get used to it. Well, QI, that's a really valuable attitude to have, right? You don't expecting other people to believe what you believe is not a good idea by any means, right? That'll usually end up being not a healthy approach to take. You're much better off, and you're much better off to, instead of expecting other people to believe what you want, just state your case and then you kind of move on from there, right? What else can you do? Louisiana University Marine Consortium, I would believe that as well, Robert. I think that's probably a very likely thing. We are going to be, by the way, ending this stream soon because I got to go do some testing. Speaking of kidney donation, I have a couple of different appointments coming up for kidney donation, which got to get some blood testing done, more of that jazz. No, Raf, I don't think we can because we almost certainly all came from a single life form, a single organism. So therefore, since we're still not sure what caused life to develop here on Earth, I don't think we can use that to make any judgments about life outside of Earth. Well, thank you for that. Please make sure you hit like and subscribe. I would truly, truly appreciate it. Interestingly enough, do you think our Masonic buildings should be used for Masonic record keeping? Yes is at 63%. No is at 37%. Okay. Well, I might be donating a kidney soon. We're going to see. I'm going for some testing coming up. So we'll see what happens. But kidney donation I've really enjoyed the process. I know it sounds weird to say, but I have. I've appreciated how much time they spend, focusing on my health and my well-being as the potential donor. So it's been a really interesting and a really good process, and I'm looking forward to learning to keeping it going. If I do donate a kidney, believe me, you'll be the first to hear it. Thank you, Yo Maple. Keep in mind the process is still ongoing, so we don't know for sure if it's going to happen or not yet, but we're working on it. It's not easy operating. I mean, I think any operation is probably really hard. Do you mean for the person getting it, like recovery, or do you mean the people doing it? Because I could not imagine being a doctor and having any type of surgery, how hard it would be. I'm not selling my kidney. I don't believe in selling a kidney. I don't believe you should ever, sell organs. I'm donating it. Again, if it happens. I mean, I'm sure it is a really tough surgery, but I have faith in the doctors. I think they know what they are doing, and I trust them. No worries, Marcus. And we talked about this before. I'm not one who, like, I think there's too many risk factors if we start to let people pay for organs. Yes, not well, but somebody I know. You were already biased, though, to conflate the OBE. I don't know what that means, to conflate the OBE with aliens. Psychological, it's a sensitive thing. I mean, I think there's always going to be the psychologically, I mean, I think there's always going to be a little bit of psychological stress when it comes to donating anything or going through surgery. But I also think there's a psychological benefit to it as well. It makes you feel and remember, like, yeah, hey, I'm doing something good, or I'm looking forward to this thing, or I can make a difference in somebody's life, which would be psychologically a very powerful thing as well. I met a guy who worked for Lockheed. He worked. Oh, I've no doubt that the technological ability that a lot of these aerospace companies have is probably so much greater and so much bigger than what we would expect. I have no doubt about that at all because a lot of it is just because you've discovered something or you're successful at something doesn't mean it's commercially marketable or economically viable at the time, right? You need to make sure that you can release it. I mean, one of my favorite expressions is being too early is the same as being too late, which is something I truly believe in, by the way. Um, I think Freemasonry struggles from that sometimes. Sometimes you'll have a great Masonic idea, but it will just be too early and it won't get the traction it deserves. And I think for a lot of these, um, lack of a better term, for a lot of these new technologies and new developments, very often what we find is they're just too early to take off. The Macintosh, I think, is a great example of something being too early. Yeah, and if you're a government, one thing that you want is you want your country and your government to get first crack at the new technology. So of course it makes sense that what you're going to try to do, amongst other things, is try to be the first person to get your stuff, right? I think that makes a lot of sense. But sometimes it's about the timing, and again, being too early can be the same thing as being too late. Maybe they were. I mean, I have no idea how far ahead of the mainstream they were, but I have no doubt that they were. It is my understanding they trickle technology, yes. Yeah, I would. I mean, I don't know if I don't know if they trickle technology. I think that they probably have more technology than what is economically viable or useful. Well, as in almost any government, right? They already have sixth gen stealth fighters. Maybe. I mean, I don't want the government to be giving me everything that they have or telling me everything that they have. I like the idea of keeping some stuff confidential, even from me, because there are national security risks, right? There are national security risks at play that you have to think about. And, I respect whether it be our scientists or whether it be our military or our generals or all these people. I want them to be as safe as possible. I want them to be as safe as they can be as they're protecting me. A big part of that, in my opinion, means I want them to have some type of military secrets and some type of military protections. Now, does that mean I think everything should be confidential? Of course not. And there's always going to be a fine line. But I think in the same way, I, as a Freemason, have the right to privacy and have the right to be a part of Freemasonry. The government has a right to maintain the privacy and confidentiality of its weapons, of its war fighting powers, again, within limits. I do not know what a railgun technology is, but I'm sure they have fancier technology than we're aware of. I mean, there is going to be an economic, a military, a social. There's a million different reasons and benefits to being the first person to develop new technology. So it just makes sense to me, of course, within that context, that they're not going to release everything, right? And I'm sure, by the way, whenever people um, I think another thing is I have no doubt that there are a million examples of advanced technology and advanced experiments and new technological efforts that resulted in complete failure, right? And that's another reason why governments may not want to release any of this information, because I'm sure for every technological advancement that resulted in a success and that resulted in either some type of new advancement in the way we live our lives or technology or weaponry. I bet you there's a million more that failed, either because the results were not what was expected, or it was too expensive, or it didn't produce the intended results, or it was too dangerous, or who knows what it was. And that's another reason why, in many cases, I suspect these new technologies are kept confidential, because there's very likely a time when it's so risky to release it because you don't know what all the risks are. You don't know if it's going to work. You don't know if it's going to work well. I think that's a really good point to keep in mind also. Extremely high wattage electromagnets. Resumed testing Sunday last year. There's a guy on YouTube with a handheld railgun. I've never been on the bullet train, but I'm someone who loves public transportation and is grateful for it. I want to, believe me. All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. It's time to take a break. I will be back on, though, at 1 p.m. Eastern. So you can find me then. Um, It'll be, 1 a.m. Eastern. So next stream will be 1 a.m. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait to see you all there. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. I hope you're all having an excellent day, and I'll talk to you all soon. I would go skydiving. Sure, why not? It'd be fun. All right, talk to you guys soon.